personal one. It's been a long day, so thank you guys for taking your time and your patience today. I'll try to keep this as short and simple as possible, but my name is David Liu, and my app is called Share Our Speech, and it's an interactive map that displays endangered languages. So first, what exactly is an endangered language? Well, it's a language that's categorized as a language that's slowly at risk of becoming extinct, which means that slowly nobody is going to be left to speak the language. And considering how in 2022, around 3,000 of the world's languages are considered endangered, which is actually about half of the world's languages, I wanted my app to kind of show that this was an issue and kind of make resources available and to show people that these languages exist and that they're placed all over the world. So that's why I decided to use an interactive MapKit API with Apple Maps to create Share Our Speech, which is a map that displays these endangered languages to the user. Now, there's four main components of my app. Firstly, there's a title page. Secondly, there's an account registration page. Next, there's the actual MapKit interface. And lastly, there's the account information center. Now, I want to break this down one at a time, starting with the title page. As you can see here, there's three main buttons on this title page. The first one actually leads you to the interactive map itself, which we'll get into later. The second one prompts you to the access page for your account. And the last one actually promotes you to my GitHub, which isn't a plug of any sorts. It actually shows the data that I used in the project as I collected it from the Endangered Languages project and sort of cleaned the data on my own and uploaded it to Firebase data storage in order to incorporate it into my app. So just for data transparency purposes, in case any of the users want to actually access the data for their own projects, for any other resources or reasons, they would have that available to them. So the next one would be account registration, which is available through the second button. And you're prompted to a sign in or a sign up page where you can either create an account if you haven't already, or simply sign in if you already have an email and a password. And the UI adapts whether or not you're actually registering an account or whether you're signing in by showing more pop-ups and basically more fields for you to enter your confirmed password and your name. But given you have a username and password, whether you log in or whether you create an account, you can actually come into the interactive map with a little bit more features than if you were just going in as a guest. And even if you don't sign in or create an account, you can still access the interactive map. You just won't have the later features that I'll tell you about in the account page. As for the actual map itself, there we go. Actually, for the actual map itself, I use Apple Maps MapKit API, which is basically just Apple Maps, but it gives you just the bread of it, and you're able to add all the toppings and the butter after. So essentially, I have pins locating the coordinates of where all these languages are predominantly spoken. And there's three main features for each of these pins. The first one is displaying and saving, the second one is searching and filtering, and the last one is using Wikipedia Kid's API. So first, as you can see on the bottom, there's four main bubbles that dictate the vulnerability of each language, whether they're at risk, threatened, vulnerable, or endangered. And you can click and filter between all the languages to sort of look at how many of these languages are endangered or if they're threatened. You can also search for specific language names, and as a result, the UI will adapt and show you only languages that have the strings that you queued inside of it. Now you can actually click on these pins, which will show you the general location where these languages are spoken, give you some general information, and by using Wikipedia Kid's API, I'm able to sort of pull information from Wikipedia about the languages, each certain languages on the pins, and incorporate that into each page. So each page is specific to each language using data stored both in Firebase and also data collected from Wikipedia using the Wikipedia Kit. And the last function is actually the account page itself. Now, after you sign in or log in, you'll notice a thing or an account button on the top right. Once you click it, you can access your account page, and the only thing I have on it right now is a list of saved languages. So when you look at the pin and you click on one of them, you'll see that one of the functions is a save language to list. If you're actually logged in, or if you have an account, you'll be able to save them to this list, and then you can delete them, and you can only save it once so that there's no duplicates once you save them. However, if you're not logged in, this function just won't be available to you, but you can still access all the other capabilities of the app. So I'd like to add a little bit more, specifically in the future implementation slide, which we'll get to later, but using Firebase data storage, I'm able to have this saved language list so users can simply go back to languages they might be interested in and the resources available to them. So this is an example of how I used Firebase to store this data. As you can see in the image right here, it shows all of the languages that I used, that I collected from the Endangered Languages Project. Data such as the coordinate points and how many speakers predominantly. That's the kind of thing I have in there that I use in Firebase in order to incorporate it into my app. And then as for the actual specific user data, each user is created in Firebase and has its own saved languages specified area where all the languages have their own unique ID. So basically, every single user has their own set of saved languages. So even if I were to sign out and go to a new user, all of their languages would be totally different if they had different languages than a whole different user. So it's very specific because of how Firebase is set up. Now, there were some difficulties during development, of course. One of them was the transition between Storyboard and SwiftUI. So I started out with Storyboard and I realized that SwiftUI had a lot more components and it was just easier in general in order to use MapKit. And I felt that the transition was a lot easier, but trying to figure it out on Storyboard first was the most difficult part. The second one would obviously be saving and loading the data through Firebase. I actually had a pretty easy time with Firebase, but when I was thinking of how I was going to do this, that was actually the hardest part because I was trying to wrap my brain around how I would save these languages, how I would get this data from different spreadsheets and incorporate it into my app. But ultimately Firebase came through and was a very nice roundabout or way of working around this difficulty. So as for the target audience and market of this app, I could see anybody interested in language, linguists, people who want to use this project for their own sorts of resources or projects, creating these outreach tools and such. Furthermore, I would also see educators and researchers using this as quick and easy knowledge and resource identification for any of them who might use them in their classes or use them in their own projects. So anyone who is interested in language could use this, and even if you aren't interested in it, you can certainly learn a lot more just by downloading the app. Lastly, as for the future implementations, I mentioned before on the account information page, the only thing I have programmed right now is the actual saved list, but I like a little bit more of functionality for the actual user, like changing your password, changing your username, changing your name, and some more fields that make it more interesting, like maybe where you're located, what languages you speak, and what you're actually interested in. So a little bit more of a personalized account information page as well. And also by adding additional data, right now I'm able to clean and collect around 100 of these languages through the database that I found on the project page, but I'd like to see a little bit more added in, and it's an easy fix considering how I can incorporate it into Firebase. But overall, I'd like to see an expansion of my app through just the raw data. But if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask.
Speaking of expanding that data set, did you try to connect directly, like connect your app directly to this database or this API potentially to gather that data?
I've thought about it, but since it's not really like an API, like they simply asked me to download this huge spreadsheet and it was all very cluttered, and I didn't really know how I was going to pick out each information before I actually attempted to clean it. So it would be a little bit harder to actually update it, but I feel like it would be something worth trying.
I'm curious how you were inspired to make this as your project. So what got you started?
Yeah, sure. So like last year I was looking into this kind of thing. I don't know, sometimes I go into like different rabbit holes, right?
Yeah.
And I actually had like a little bit of research planned about using like a chatbot for endangered languages. So that kind of was the sort of inspiration for this, and also a future implementation I might possibly add are like different sorts of chatbot helpers for each language page that could help you learn more about it or connect with you in that language.
So just a couple small suggestions. Adding video or audio news speakers would be a great feature, right? So we can actually hear them. I'm thinking about people who might have problems pinching and with a map. So like search by region, right? Like would be a cool feature in your search. And then when you pull up a language, like it was really kind of hard to read the text even on a larger screen, especially when you're looking at a list of countries. I think tidying that up and creating like a bulleted list of each of the countries, and then like a good to know. And I know you're pulling from like a PDF, so you kind of have to play around with that. But even increasing the font size would make it a little bit more accessible because it felt tiny for me on a big screen. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if this is on a phone, it would be really hard to read.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see that as an improvement.
Maybe just tacking on to the data topic. Have you thought about using ISO data?
I'm not familiar with it.
So ISO is kind of like an international standard organization, is what it stands for. So essentially it's basically just data sets that they put together to make sure that things like country codes and, different language codes and all of that map around the world. That way not everyone is implementing their own, flavor of the data. And typically, most systems will use ISO data, so maybe the, system you're already pulling from implements that, but maybe just something to keep in the back of your mind while integrating the data even further.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I haven't heard of that yet, but I think it definitely helped with this out, so thank you.
Great use of research to determine the marketplace, and that opportunity. I really also like to, see that welcome back screen. 40% of users use that screen because they don't remember their user password, so awesome with that. And then, an opportunity I wrote down is, once you've narrowed it down and you've identified something that you're interested in, being able to, give them some type of opportunity to either share it, export it, do something with it, right? Add to it, anything along those lines. So,
Yeah.
but great job.
Thank you.
And if they're native speaker, like being able to add audio recording of basic phrases would be a really